When you strip away the awkwardness and the stigma that's associated with networking, what is networking actually about?
50% of young adults avoid any form of networking because of the fear that's attached to it.
Through networking that you start to be around like-minded people who feed into the type of person you want to be. Accesses the gap between your potential and the rooms where that potential can be seen. The problem isn't that we lack talent. The problem is we lack exposure. Why do you think networking gets such a bad rep?
It's almost $1 million question. I think one of the main reasons is because...
Hi guys, and welcome back to the Boldly Ambitious podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Liddy.
And I'm Hazal.
We're doctors, founders and entrepreneurs in our 20s.
And this is a space for the ambitious girlies chasing big dreams and building bold lives.
I am so excited about today's episode. If you know anything about me, Hazal knows how much I love the topic of networking.
Yeah, this is literally a topic made for you.
Bread and butter. I could yap about networking all day. And I think it's literally because from our perspective as people who have built like lives for ourselves from scratch, networking, access and mentors played such a big role in that. And I think, you know, access, mentoring is such a big word on social media. It's a buzzword. But one thing I really want to do in this episode is help the ambitious girlies know where to actually start and walk away from this with actionable insights, practical tips that they can implement into their lives to transform their 2026. So in your opinion, when you strip away the awkwardness and the stigma that's associated with networking, what is networking actually about?
I think you're right. Networking is literally like a buzzword that everyone says, but it's important to break it down to its basics, its building blocks, so we can actually talk about all the different things that come with networking. And I think sort of on a bird's eye view perspective, networking is essentially interacting with other people to exchange information and build professional or social contacts, right? And to me, networking is not sort of like a transactional thing where you go to someone, you go to them just to gain some information or just to get to the next stage, but it's much more deeper than that. It's about building meaningful connections with people in the same industry or in different industries with the ultimate goal of helping bring each other up and towards each other's goals, I would say.
Definitely. I think I love what you said about to you, it's not necessarily transactional. And I think in like the most simplistic terms, if we're to simplify it even more than what you said, it's essentially relationship building. That's how I see it anyways. Relationship building, it doesn't have to be something that's as, you know, in depth as going to grab a coffee with someone in order to exchange information or to learn about them. It can be as simplistic as interacting with each other's LinkedIn posts or even interacting with each other's social media posts, regardless of where they may be. And I think it's just a beautiful way to learn from one another and to also support one another as well. I think when you are exchanging information about who you are and what you stand for, it allows people to keep you in mind for certain things. For me, it's a form of proximity. If people know, okay, Liddy loves all things social mobility, and they are in a situation where a social mobility opportunity comes up or a social mobility newsletter comes up, they might keep me in mind, think of me, send me the newsletter. They might keep me in mind, put me forward for the opportunity. So it's not necessarily about you know, leeching onto one another in order to gain something. I just think it's a nice way to, like I said, support one another and push each other forward. One thing I also want to touch on as well is the fact that it's such a powerful form of accountability, and I don't think enough people see it in that way. When you network, and let's say you network with people who you guys are all about the same thing, you're all working towards the same vision or mission, whether it's you know, an entrepreneur venture, you all want to make more money, or whether it's social impact, you all want to make impact in this specific field like education. I think when you're able to network and come together in that way, you're able to keep each other accountable for certain pursuits and projects. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a really interesting concept, actually, like network being used for accountability, because I think if we even take the word network out of it, for example, when we're in school or in university, when we're talking to our colleagues, learning from each other and learning about each other's goals, that's essentially networking.
But we don't network all the time.
Exactly. We don't see it as networking because we're not in a professional setting, or we're not in a, you know, a networking event, or it's not LinkedIn, but that's still a form of networking. Like what you said, relationship building, right? And when you let's say you and your friend are working towards the same goal, you keep each other accountable. And in a similar way, when you network with someone and you have similar goals, or it doesn't even have to be similar goals, but when you're both working towards something, and you help each other along the way, it's essentially a way of keeping each other accountable and saying, oh, Liddy, you should do this. Oh, Hazal, you should do this. This will help you with that. Like,
exactly.
I think we need to, I know it's such a buzzword and a lot of people fear networking, but if we actually strip it down to its basics, like you said, it's relationship building, and we do it all the time.
Yeah.
So if we look at it from that lens, it will actually remove the fear that many people have with networking. I think I saw a stat, it was like 50% of young adults avoid any form of networking because of the fear that's attached to it. But it really doesn't have to be as scary and as, daunting as we make it seem to be.
For sure. And based on that stat you just mentioned, young adults, right? People who, let's assume, we're in our early 20s as we are, etc. In that age that we're at, it's so pivotal because I think we're learning a lot about ourselves, our futures, and who we want to be. We're becoming, right? And I think, that whole thing everyone says where it's like you're the average out of the 5 people you hang out with the most, you're an average of them. It's so important because it's through networking and relationship building and conversation that you start to be around like-minded people who feed into your growth and feed into the type of person you want to be. So going off of that, when you look back, what role has visibility to the right people played in your growth beyond just career opportunities? Do you want me to repeat that to make sure you got the
go on, one more time,
When you look back, what role has visibility to the right people played in your growth beyond career opportunities?
That's a really good question. I would say visibility was everything because without being visible in certain rooms or in certain professional settings, I wouldn't have been able to meet some of the people who I now get the chance to call my friend because we would have just never known of each other, right? I feel like we're in a digital world right now, and that has both its pros and its cons. When we look at its cons, because everything's digitalized, sometimes we feel like there isn't that need to see people in person. But if you can't see people, you can't build that human connection and that you can't network and build that relationship, right? So going out of my way, whether it be to go into certain events or conferences, has meant that I've been able to then meet people who I can learn from and then who can help me in the next stages, not just with my career, but put me in contact with people who we're like-minded and we can be friends and we can push each other both on and off, both in and out of our careers. When I say, and in terms of digitalization now being a pro, I would say, for example, with content creation, it's allowed me to be more visible to then again meet some of my friends who I wouldn't have met just because they were able to see me on social media and we had a common sort of mission or common goal and we were able to push each other in that way.
For sure. And I think to piggyback off of that, I really like that word. Is it piggyback?
Piggyback, yeah.
Is it piggy bank,
No, it's not piggyback.
To piggyback off of that, I saw this thing on Threads the other day. I'm a Threads babe now because Twitter really scares me, to be honest. There's a lot going on there. And it said that a part of you has been completely like untapped, unexplored into because you haven't met a particular person. And I think that's so true because visibility as a form of exposure really catapults your growth. Because when I think about what you just said, like there are certain people that if I wasn't exposed to them or if visibility didn't allow our paths to cross, certain ideas or perspectives that they unlocked within me would never have existed. Sometimes you have a conversation with a friend, or even through this podcast, some of the guests we're having, we have a conversation with them and we leave feeling so encouraged. We leave feeling so inspired. We leave with a new, fresh idea that we wouldn't have had otherwise if we never had that conversation. So I really do encourage ambitious women who fear networking to see it as a form of character development as well. Definitely. You need to be exposed to certain people in order to access certain aspects of your identity.
And I think, as humans, we love being in our comfort zone, right? And if we never expose ourselves to new thoughts or new ideas, we're always going to be stuck within that comfort zone of ours and within that box. So whether it be seeking out that information yourself through events or social media or just the internet, or meeting people who are in those spaces you want to learn more from, it will allow you to not only push yourself out of your comfort zone, but like you said, tap into a part of your sort of life that you would have never come across otherwise. I think even in our own lives, there's so many examples of that, whether it be starting content creation, whether it be starting this podcast, whether it be even like starting investing, all of those things, we were able to speak to other people who are able to share their own insights and help us with that. And without networking, I don't think we'll be where we are right now.
Exactly. And just to really solidify what you essentially said, the standards we hold for ourselves, us knowing like what we think is possible and what's not possible, the transformation of our thinking to get to the level we are right now, it couldn't have been to some extent unlocked without networking. So my question for you is, why do you think networking gets such a bad rep? We touched on it slightly, but let's go into it. Why do we think so many people have this aversion towards networking?
That is such a good question. I feel like it's almost $1 million question. Why does everyone hate networking? And I think...
Is it?
I think so, because why is it feared so much? I don't know. But I think one of the main reasons is because of the transactional nature of networking, or people thinking that it's just a transaction. So when you are the one who wants to do networking, you don't want to seem like you're trying to leech off someone, or you're there just for your own gain. And then on the other end, when you're being networked with, some people might think, oh, everyone just wants to gain XYZ from me, or people aren't here because they have a genuine interest. They just want my contact with this person and that person. And I think we all just need to step back, because like you said, if we take it back to the core of networking, which is relationship building, I know some people might be there with quote unquote ill intent, but you can tell apart someone who's trying to build a true connection versus someone there who's just for the transactional nature of it. So if you go into networking with the right mindset of, I'm here to build a relationship with someone who I have a common interest with, and go into it without expecting anything in return, then I think it will change your whole approach with networking, and it might actually change the outcomes you have with networking as well.
For sure. I think we've both been at like the other end of feeling as though people are approaching us just to get a particular thing. Like they're not interested in us as a human being, but it's almost we're being treated as an object. Like this thing can help me access that thing. And it's not a nice feeling. And I think also we're in an era of cold emails, lots and lots of cold emails. You open your email, you open your LinkedIn, you open your DMs, everyone's trying to sell you something, and it can get quite exhausting. But I think one thing that I kind of want to touch on what you said is about the whole people not wanting to feel as though someone wants to get something out of a relationship. I'm going to be devil's advocate and say that to some extent, aren't relationships meant to be mutually beneficial? Like you're both meant to gain something from it, whether it's, if we look at friendships, emotional connection, support, a partner, whatever it is, like I think to some extent a relationship is meant to be mutually beneficial. So I think when it's transactional, I don't agree with that. But if someone you've networked with, you're both looking to learn something from one another and maybe even gain something from one another, I don't think that within itself is a bad thing. Because I think we have a lot of relationships from networking where we've been able to exchange ideas, we've been able to maybe exchange contacts, we've been able to exchange inspiration and whatnot. And I think that is an important part of networking. And I think when done correctly, innately, I don't see what's wrong with that.
No, I think, definitely I agree with what you're saying. I think it's about it being mutually beneficial. People don't want to feel like they're being used, which is like the term people use when they feel like people are just there for their own gain. But if it's mutually beneficial, and it doesn't have to be mutually beneficial in the same genre. So for example, someone might help us with contacts and we might help them with advice in, I don't know, content creation, for example, right? So it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be quote unquote mutually beneficial in the same way. But as long as both parties feel like they're benefiting from this relationship, I think that's what it comes down to, right? If both parties feel like they're benefiting from the relationship in one way or another, then that's just like any other relationship, whether it be friendship, romantic, even like family. Like, as long as you're both there helping each other get to the next stage and help improve each other and better each other, then I don't see a problem with that.
For sure. And I think another reason why networking gets a bad rep is because people attach a lot of pressure to it. I'm saying people, but this is basically me. When I'm going to like a professional networking event or I'm going to an event where I know there will be people there that I would like to network with. I would like them to be my network. I would like to build a connection or start building a professional relationship with them. There's a lot of pressure that comes with where I'm like, oh my God, am I going to meet like the one person that's perhaps going to transform my thinking in this way or give me inspiration or take me to the next level? And I think just put the pressure away. It's not everyone that you conversate with that's going to go on to be this magical connection that's going to open that door for you. And it's not every occasion or environment you're in that you need to meet the one connection that's gonna, like I said, transform your life. I think it's okay if you're trying to be intentional about networking this year and you make maybe a goal to yourself, like, you know, about things you can control. Like, I want to aim to conversate with 5 people. But if you make unrealistic goals for yourself, like, I want to walk away with 2 interviews, 2 job offers, be ambitious, but also be realistic, and also don't put too much pressure on yourself, because you could end up blocking a huge blessing that's waiting for you at the event. So I think, yes, removing the pressure attached to it and understanding that it's not every environment or scenario that you're at that's going to lead to a transformational connection.
Yeah, I agree. I think there can definitely be a lot of pressure because you're like, I don't want to miss out on the one big thing. But I would honestly say, as someone who's been to lots of events and had to get over this fear myself, this is going to sound so cringe, but just be yourself.
Oh my God.
Honestly, just be yourself and be natural and talk to people how you would normally talk to people. You can be a bit more intentional and say, I'm going to speak to more people than I usually would, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna, like Liddy said, you're gonna walk away with 10 job offers. Like, just be yourself, be natural, and see where the conversation naturally goes. You might end up achieving your goals, you might not within that certain networking event, but the more you keep putting yourself out there and speaking to like-minded people and speaking to people who you are genuinely inspired by, eventually you'll be able to build up those connections and then go to the next stage.
Yeah, it begs the question, right? Because practice makes perfect. Is networking a bad thing, or are you just really crap at it? We need to ask ourselves the question. And even if you are bad at it, there's nothing wrong with that. I think I'm still bad at networking sometimes, but it's about reframing yourself out of victim mentality and thinking, am I seeing networking as a bad thing, or am I just covering up insecurities and running away from something that could be really beneficial for my future? Because, you know, another reason why I might get a bad rep is because people don't actually know how to network and how to go about it. And I don't think there's a perfect formula, but let's start with the how do you actually network? Do you go into rooms and treat it like an interview when you're speaking to people, or do you aim to have a genuinely meaningful conversation with a person? I think when I learned that, it completely transformed the way I build connections now, whether in person or offline. I think you need to actually seek to just speak to someone. And as a naturally curious person, when I'm talking to someone, I want to know about you, and, you know, why did you start this particular venture, or what got you interested in this niche? Like, I'm actually interested in you as a person. And I think when people feel like you care about them, who hates being cared for? Like, everyone loves it. Like, care about me. Want to know
we
about
love
people.
attention.
People love talking about themselves, right? So just strive to have a meaningful conversation and don't treat it like an interview, and you will see for yourself how much more comfortable networking becomes for not just you but the other individual as well.
Honestly, just strike a conversation, but be authentic with that and be genuine with that. For example, if you're in a networking event and there's someone who you've already maybe seen around, you know a bit about their work, just go up to them and say, hi Liddy, or hi so-and-so. Are we doing like an example?
Simulation.
Like, hi Liddy, you know, I really loved hearing about your work, and I've seen you online and I saw that you did XYZ, and I just want to say I really love the work you're doing and keep it up. It's a great way to start a conversation, and it shows that you actually care because you know a bit about what they're doing. And I think that's different to, for example, going up to someone and saying, hi, you know, I don't really know much about you. Tell me who you are and who you know. Like, that would be a completely different way to go about it. I'm not going to want to speak to someone who comes up to me with that sort of tonality and that sort of sentence. So I think it's about how you approach the person. And also, even if you don't know what they do, say, hi, you know, what's brought you to this event? So what do you work in? I'd love to know a bit more about what you do. It's just how you come off in that conversation, and you can always tell when someone has a genuine interest in what you do versus someone there who's just trying to see, you know, what are your accolades and what can I gain from you. There's a clear difference.
Sure. And I think alongside the how do you network, I think another reason why networking gets a bad rep is because people are actually networking with the wrong types of people. And let me expand on what I mean by that. I think when I first started getting into, okay, how can I get better at this thing called networking? I thought that I had to network with the CEO of X company, the person with this accolade or this achievement or this title attached to them. And while there's nothing wrong with seeking to learn from someone who's 10 steps ahead of you, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I do think that a lot of the time, what people get wrong about networking is they disregard the importance of also networking with people who are on the same journey as you.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever networked with people with the intention of, okay, maybe they'll blow tomorrow, and when they blow, they'll take me with them. Don't think like that. And if you think like that, stop thinking like that. Some people will think like that. No, it was more so like, oh, you're trying to get on the property ladder? Me too. Oh, you're trying to build an organization? Me too.
Yeah.
Let's do this together. Let's exchange tips. Let's send each other newsletters or posts that we see. Let's have a co-work sesh. Let's go on a coffee date and do something together.
Yeah.
I find that at that point, you're both, this is going to sound really, really bad, and I probably shouldn't say this online, but I think at that point, you're both, I don't say humble enough. You're both not that busy because you're still on your journey of building. Because when you eventually do build something, you might be a bit too busy to always be able to give yourself to people trying to grow. But at that point, you're both building slowly. You may not have as many commitments or as many things in the calendar, so you can afford to see each other a bit more. And then it means that you can access each other more and also go on that journey. And what happens later on is now we're at a point where, okay, you have a property, I have a property, we can exchange ideas and continue to learn and grow. You don't just need to network with the big dogs. It's okay to network with people who are also on the same journey as you, because sometimes it can be even more beneficial. You can exchange ideas, exchange, inspiration, co-work together, share newsletters, share posts, and build together. And then what happens is later on in the journey, no matter how far along an individual is, because they know that, okay, this is a pursuit that they're currently on. If you have a good network where people do pass the ladder down, you end up in a situation where even though that person's in that position, you're in this position, they're still willing to, invite you to certain opportunities or to still exchange certain information so that you kind of get to the point they are at their journey and win together.
Yeah. Can I say something?
Yeah.
I feel like that's basically the story of our friendship.
What do you mean?
Like, we started off as like, we basically networked and found each other. It's crazy. We networked and we both were on the same journey of trying to get into medical school. So we were like, do you know what? We're both on this journey together. Let's help each other and let's get to the end goal together. And then obviously Liddy, was obsessed with me, and then we became best friends. But we started off with, our friendship started off with networking. And I think as humans, we love going through things together because no one wants to be on any sort of journey alone. And if there's someone who literally has very similar goals to you, you can help each other like we did. We helped each other with our interviews, with our applications. And that's essentially what makes networking so beautiful. I feel like an ad for networking, but it's true. It's what makes networking so beautiful, because look at the amazing friendship that we've been able to build just by starting off with helping each other because we were going through the same journey.
Exactly. Not everyone will open a door, but some people can change your trajectory for life. And I think that's what we were both able to do for each other. You didn't
Did
get
I change the trajectory of your life?
Please. You didn't get me into medical school without me having to, you didn't, open it like, hey, Liddy, we've networked now, get into medical school. You don't even have to do an interview. Just come along.
I've asked my contacts, come in.
But we changed each other's trajectory in that we networked and built together, which meant that just as our characters developed into disciplined, driven people who inevitably went on to be successful, we were able to take each other along for that ride, for that journey, to a point where we can build success together and invite each other to each other's tables.
And honestly, I could probably name at least 20 more people that we've been able to start off with networking with, but who have now become our friends, and we're now building together and growing together. And that's just the beauty.
We're now all successful.
Exactly. And we'll continue to be. Yeah. And this is why I'm so passionate about networking, because it's essentially relationship building, and the relationships we've been able to build since the start of our journey on social media has just been incredible. And we wouldn't be, like I said just earlier, we wouldn't be where we are today without those networks. And that's why we want the same for you ambitious girlies as well. Just go out, go to any event. It doesn't matter what it is, just whatever you're interested in, search it up on Google, whether it be property.
We're going to get into that.
Oh, we're going to get into that. Okay. Fine.
So when we say buzzwords like mentors or access, I want to talk about what each term actually means so that the terminology seem less daunting and more attainable for the young, ambitious women who are watching today's episode. So let's start with mentors. What does that word mean to you?
I think you should take this one.
Oh, should I?
I feel like you're about to spit some bars. I think you should take this one.
Okay. So I had to do some research into this because I wanted the
What? Some research.
I did some research into this because I wanted the most clear and attainable definition to remove the jargon and make ambition accessible. And what I found online, you know, out of all the definitions I saw, the one I really loved was a mentor is essentially a partnership or relationship where a trusted advisor supports someone in reaching their full potential or achieving their goals.
Okay.
So based off of that, would you say you have mentors?
Ooh. I feel like I definitely have loads of like unofficial mentors.
What do you mean by unofficial?
Like no one I've gone to and said, you are now my mentor in medicine, or you are now my mentor in content creation. But there are people who pop up to my mind when I'm like, if I have a question about this, I know I can go to them because they're, you know, a few chapters down on this same journey, and they can guide me, they can advise me, they can tell me what to do, what not to do. And all of those mentors, like unofficial mentors, were all built through networking. But yeah, do you have any like official mentors?
Yeah, I think I loved what you said about the whole unofficial thing. I think one thing I've really learned in my 20s is that a mentor doesn't have to be someone with a program, a title, or an accolade attached to them. An accolade attached to them. I think a lot of the time it's just a trusted advisor that influences how you think and how you move in a way that permits you to eventually reach your full potential. And I think for me, explicitly, I don't have any, like you said, official mentor, someone I went up to and said, can you be my mentor? A lot of the time it was just relationship building. I built a relationship with someone who went on to be a friend, but because they are 10 steps down the journey that I'm taking, or you know, a few years down the journey that I'm pursuing, I'm able to go to them with certain questions or inquiries, and they're more than happy to support in that way. I think, for example, if we look at digital mentors, without realizing it, a lot of us actually have digital mentors. You know, we could be mentors to people listening to this right now. The point is, most of my mentorship like relationships have happened organically, and it's just been a process of time, proximity, and trust. But in saying that, I do think it's also okay if you do approach someone and you're like, hey, in this specific area, are you happy to be a mentor? I know that, you know, at church, for example, I approached an individual that I had that type of, you know, pastoral mentorship like relationship with, and I was like, hey, can you be my spiritual mentor? Is it okay if you keep me accountable? If every quarter we do a check-in, we discuss certain things, I ask you certain questions. And that was because I was being very intentional about the format in which I wanted that mentorship relationship to take place in. But yeah, most of mine have definitely been organic as well. So the next question, Hazal, that I think the ambitious girlies are burning to know is, how do you actually find these amazing mentors that change your lives?
I think in most scenarios, you can't go straight from stranger to mentor unless you've sort of applied to a program specifically where it's for mentorship and you're sort of allocated to someone. Like, for example, I know when we were applying to medical school, there were schemes where you could be paired together with a current medical student who could guide you through the process. And that is an example of where you go from stranger to mentor, but it's more of in a professional setting. But I think in most scenarios, I would look at your current network and the current people you know,
your environment.
and in your environment, in the different sort of sectors of your life, and see if there's anyone sort of that you have that a relationship with, or you have that trust with, that you can say, you know, I'd appreciate if you could help me in this specific setting or in this specific environment, and if you could be my mentor. And it doesn't necessarily have to be someone you're really close with, but it just, I think in most scenarios, if it's someone you already have some sort of relationship with, it will help take that relationship to the next level, because in any sort of mentorship, you are going to have trust and that understanding of each other to help each other in that journey.
I think whether it's school and work or you know, other sorts of environment, I think repeated proximity is quite important, because the more you're seeing someone, the more you're learning about one another and building that trust and building that kind of mentorship like relationship where they actually know where you need support in, where you're headed. And I think shared spaces as well can really help, whether it's, you know, academic, professional, religious, health related, like the gym. So I think shared spaces and just, like you said, looking around your current environment.
And there might be sort of circumstances in which you might, because I'm just thinking, if you were to email someone saying, you know, hey, I love what you do, could you mentor me in this? They might they might not be against the idea, but they might not know you or anything about you or what you do to see if this is a great fit. So I don't think it's necessarily appropriate to always start it off on that leg, but you can always start off by just the first steps of networking, just getting to know them, sharing your similar interests, and then taking it to that next step of mentorship if you see it as a great fit and if they see it as a great fit as well.
Yeah, for sure. Amazing. So when we talk about access now, we're not just talking about opportunities being randomly handed to you. We're talking about what actually leads to the thing where you're being invited into rooms, positions, and opportunities that change the trajectory of your life.
Yep.
So to you, what would you say access looks like, or how has it played a role in your success as someone in their early 20s?
Access. I'm not sure.
Fairs.
I'm actually not sure. That's a
I think
really
it's a
loaded question.
Yeah.
Do you want to start off? And I'm sure I'll have something to say.
Okay, I think to me, kind of when I was thinking about this topic, because like you said, it is something I had to sit and think about as well. Like, because we say it a
Should've
lot, we
warned
say
me.
these buzzwords a lot, but I really want to get to the nitty gritty about what we mean when we say them. And I think access looks like people knowing who you are,
Okay.
people then trusting who you are and what you say you bring to the table and what you're about. And then because they trust and know who you are, they can then think of you when certain opportunities arise. And I think people open doors for you when they feel confident in who they're inviting into the room.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? Like, can they understand what you bring? Can they understand what alignment looks like for you? Can they feel confident recommending you to someone else? Because if you're being recommended on behalf of me, you're representing me. So I think access is that whole thing of being invited into spaces as a result of people kind of trusting who you are and what you're about. That was my understanding of it.
No, I think that's a great explanation actually. And I would say there's quite a few examples of where I've had the privilege of sort of experiencing that. For example, when we were at university, we were invited to give a talk in front of sort of all the leadership teams within the medical school, and it was quite a daunting
Subtle flex.
It was quite a daunting experience. We were sort of the youngest people in the room, speaking to all these executives and people who have been in the field for sort of tens and tens of years, and spoke to them about sort of the importance of social media and digitalization of healthcare at the time. And it was such an amazing experience. And similarly, we then had the opportunity to actually work with the university on a one-to-one basis for a project they had for one of their websites. And again, we didn't apply for that. That just happened because they saw the work we did, they liked the work we did, and they could trust that we could bring that same sort of creativity and skill set to their own projects as well.
I think that example is bang on, because I think at the end of the day, the way I see it is access is the gap between your potential and the rooms where that potential can be seen. A lot of us ambitious women aren't necessarily born into environments where we have access to industry knowledge, insider access, generational wealth. So for some of us, the problem isn't that we lack talent. The problem is we lack exposure. And I think visibility in this day and age is what, one of our guests said this recently, democratizes that exposure and that access. It doesn't matter where you come from. If you give the world no choice but to hear you, but to see you, but to know what you're about, people have no choice but, especially people who are like-minded and are meant to be on your path, they have no choice but to kind of align with that and to get to know you and to know what you're about. And if it works, if it matches, if you're both about the same type of mission, what's stopping them or stopping you from potentially now reaching doors that they can be the key to opening, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it's about taking exposure into your own hands.
Yes. And I think if you come from a background like ours where you're building from scratch, the way I would approach visibility and exposure is very much, if I want a certain life for myself and I want access to certain things, I'm not even gonna give myself the option. I'm gonna find a way to be visible. And it's not just about social media and being online. There are formats in which you can be visible offline as well. We've spoken about it in, a recent episode about personal branding. But I would, like you said, take visibility into your own hands and don't give visibility a choice. Make it mandatory for you to access those rooms that you do deserve to be in. And I think expanding on my point about visibility, I think A big lie that ambitious women need to stop believing is the fact that hard work and visibility equate to the same amount of leverage when it comes to access. I think at the end of the day, no matter how exceptional you are, like we've been banging on about, people actually need to know that you are exceptional, and they won't know that just because you put your head down and work hard. They're going to know about it if you shine a light on it and if you shout about it, whether you like it or not. Would you trust a stranger with something valuable? No. So why should someone trust you with an exceptional opportunity if they don't know anything about you? I think there's this sometimes entitlement that comes with, I don't need to force visibility. I don't need to network. I don't need to do any of those things. Opportunities will just come and knock at my door and find me. And I think the matter of fact is that's just not how the real world works. So I think if you're someone who wants to leverage your amazingness, you need to be visible about it. And it's through being visible about it that you will then be able to network with the people who can really change the trajectory of things in your life. The rooms we've been invited to, whether that be international roundtables with global organizations, the brand partnerships, the speaking engagements, the impact we've been able to make, it wouldn't have happened without visibility, without being loud about it. Because when we were loud about who we were, it then opened the doors for access. And through that access, we were then able to network further with people who could really unlock our potential. So one thing I really want to get into is the concept of seeing your network as an ecosystem that shapes who you're becoming. What are your thoughts on that?
I love that word ecosystem. It's similar to what you said earlier, which is you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself the most with. But if we take that sort of to the next step, because your network is going to be a bit bigger than 5 people, I think it's essentially, your network is essentially groups of people in different aspects of your life that can help you get to the next stage and who can help push you and inspire you and motivate you. And sort of 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, you'll be able to look back and see how the different people that you're connected with helped you on in the different steps of your life. And I think it will sort of build this beautiful picture like an ecosystem and show you how, because you don't get to the top by yourself. You need support and help from the people around you. And when you do have that supportive network in all different aspects of your life, you'll be able to see how each person had their own individual sort of involvement in who you've become today or who you've become in 10 years' time.
Worded perfectly. Like, I don't just see network as my contacts, as people who I can approach for favors, as the amount of connections I have on LinkedIn.
No.
I see it as the rooms I'm close to, the ideas I'm constantly exposed to, the standards that I therefore set for myself as a result. I think just like an ecosystem, your network, your environment, it can either shape you, pour into you, or limit and drain you. And I think that's the importance of seeing your network like an ecosystem. The same way that plants need access to sun and water to thrive and grow is the same way that we need the right people in our environment, in our network, and therefore our ecosystem in order to fully flourish into the amazing, beautiful flowers we're meant to be in different aspects of our lives, not just professionally, but also personally, academically, financially, etc. So I want to ask this. People say your network is your net worth, but what does that actually mean beyond money?
Ooh, beyond money.
Yeah.
What a saying, by the way, your network is your net worth.
Whoever made that up ate with that,
I know, because it is facts. And I think we actually say this to each other quite often. And outside of money, well, I think money is sort of the end product anyway. It's not what comes straight from networking. Like, for example, I think I saw this thing where it was 75% of jobs are filled by people who have networks or connections with the people giving out the jobs. So networking isn't just about the money aspect, it's about opportunities. It's about even experience, exposure, visibility. Money, I would say, is the end product or the byproduct of networking. But essentially, it's about putting yourself in the spaces that you necessarily might not have had access to otherwise, which then might end up to jobs and money. But for example, we asked one of our friends the other day if they had any brands they thought would be a great match with, and they sent us a list of emails that we wouldn't have had access to by ourselves, but we had someone who sees what we do, likes what we do, and is happy to help us get to that next stage and provided us with emails that we can then contact ourselves. So that's what I'd say networking is mainly about. It's about the exposure, the visibility, and the opportunities that you otherwise wouldn't have had access to.
Yeah, as a result of the relationships you're building organically without necessarily forcing it to be transactional.
Yeah.
I think networking has completely transformed the way we even view things like money.
Yeah.
It's transformed our risk appetite, the way we view ambition or growth, the opportunities we didn't know existed, the ways of thinking. Networking goes beyond just money, but the reason why I do think your network is your net worth is because the way that it builds your character and the way you understand the world and what's available ends up transforming your net worth anyways, in regards to
like
kind
a
of
byproduct.
It's a byproduct, your relationship with money. Of course, it doesn't have to be a byproduct if you're networking with, financial success in mind, but I think for us to where we've maybe seeked to network in order to build impact, to build opportunity XYZ, it's definitely been a byproduct where we've been able to learn about certain things, whether it's, our preferred method for investing or how to go about property or like you mentioned earlier, how to build our creative career. I think it's an amazing thing. Your network is definitely your net worth, but not in the ways you think. If you're enjoying this episode so far, be sure to give it a 5-star review on any audio platform you may be listening on. And if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe as well. Today we're filming at Myriad Studios, so if you're looking for a podcast space, check it out for yourself. The link will be in the bio down below. This episode is brought to you by Figs. As healthcare girlies juggling so much, sometimes life feels a lot. You're constantly making decisions about career, money, relationships, what to eat for dinner. Decision fatigue is real. But one choice that is always easy is wearing Figs.
These scrubs are ridiculously soft and super comfortable from the moment you put them on. They have anti-wrinkle, 4-way stretch, and are still somehow super lightweight.
They also just look really good. There's a huge range of styles with new limited edition drops happening all the time and basically every color you can think of. Hazal's favorite one are the pink ones that she literally can't stop wearing. Figs are designed to support you through long days, long shifts, and full lives without having to make you think twice about what to wear.
So if you'd like one less thing to think about, head to wearfigs.com and use FigsXBA for 15% off your first order. That's wearfigs.com, code FigsXBA.
So Hazal. Yeah. For the ambitious girlies listening who don't have family connections, industry insiders, or built-in access, what are some practical ways that they can expand their circle, find mentors, and build a network from scratch?
I love this question.
Me too.
And I think, honestly, just by reflecting on our journey, I would start off by going to as many events as you can in topics you are interested in.
Put yourself in the right environment.
Exactly. So go on Eventbrite or Instagram, just even a Google search, for example, property event London or finance event London, whatever you are interested in.
Or even academia, how to get into medical school events.
Exactly. Yeah. Or I don't know, geography event London, whatever you're interested in.
Yeah, if London is where you live, by the way.
Exactly. Wherever you're based, we're in a world where there's so many events all the time. Some are free, some might be paid. Look at the events and whichever ones you're interested in, whichever ones you can make, just go there with the expectation of just learning something new or meeting someone new. Don't go there with, I'm now going to meet the CEO of X company that's going to give me a job. Like, that's not how it works. You just go there with the expectation of learning something new about the topic you're already interested in and meeting someone new who also has an interest in that same topic, and start with that. Go to as many events as you can. Obviously, don't have to go to 100, but naturally you will meet new people who will then tell you about different events or different experiences or opportunities that within the same field that you can then explore as well. But that would be my first step.
And I add to that first step before you kind of go on to the next. I definitely think access starts with the rooms that you place yourself in.
Definitely.
I think one thing you kind of touched on was education as a form of exposure, putting yourself in rooms where you can learn, putting yourself in spaces where you can, find other people who are also learning, who are also going on that journey, or maybe you meet people who are 10 steps ahead of you that you can ask questions to. And I do think there's also space as well to kind of place yourself in strategic rooms. And what I mean by that is, I know not a lot of people may not want to hear it, but is just how the world works at the moment. People who choose to go to certain schools, you know, one of the reasons why we started the charity we started is because going from state school to grammar school, we saw the huge discrepancy in resources available just because of the type of school we went to. So I know that's another thing. We deliberately decided we are going to grammar school sixth forms because we need access to more resources in order to get into the medical schools we want to get into. So that's another form of where to start. What rooms are you putting yourself into? Are you being strategic about those rooms? There are people who we went to uni with, people who were like, when I graduate, if I'm going to work in consultancy or investment banking, I'm going to make sure I'm in the big four because I'm going to have access to certain rooms and certain resources that will catapult my career that being elsewhere may not. And whether this is fair or just or not is a topic within itself. But knowing that that's how things work, it may be within your benefit to think about how you're strategically placing yourself in those spaces.
And the second step would be, once you meet these people, you need to stay in touch with them, because you're not going to build a network off of one conversation, or you're not going to be able to keep up with that person based off of one conversation.
Before we get to that though, can we talk about how to actually show up in said rooms? Because I think that's an important aspect.
Of course.
How do you show up without it being awkward?
I think, scratch what I said earlier. This is
we'll circle back to that.
We'll get back to that. But this is step 2, which is, like I mentioned earlier, show up as yourself. I know, cringe, but it's honestly so true. You can't go in playing a character or playing someone else or someone you think people want to meet. You need to turn up as yourself and going with the mindset of, you know, what are your expectations? For example, what are your expectations from yourself? Like, how many people do you want to just meet and start a conversation with? You can't go into these rooms and sit in the corner and expect people to come and speak to you, because there's going to be hundreds of conversations going on. So you need to have that initiative to speak to people yourself. For example, like I mentioned, you can go up to them and ask them about what they do, what brings them to this certain event, what are their interests within this event. If there's a speech that's just happened, what was their favorite part from the speech? Nothing too in-depth or sort of difficult, just like an icebreaker, right? Have an icebreaker conversation and see where that conversation takes you.
I absolutely love that, because I think it's about, how do I actually show up in these rooms in a way that allows me to build connection and be curious, ask thought-provoking questions, depending on who you're speaking to, try and find common ground. You'll be surprised how bonding over your love for fashion with the CEO of XYZ company can actually lead to them remembering you for a certain thing. You don't need to leave with a mentor or a job, but I think sometimes all you need is one familiar face, one email, message me about this and I'll see what I can do to completely change your life. I can't emphasize enough how a single, message me about this, change things for us, because we did message, we did follow up, and that's something we're going to get into. But I think a part of networking that everyone forgets is not just about what you can gain from others, but what value are you there to actually deliver to other people. And I actually have a book recommendation for this, because understanding this one thing is what allowed me to stop being so timid in rooms I was networking in, and understand that, you know what, I have something to provide as well. And it's a book called The Unfair Advantage by Ashi Ali and Hassan Kuba. And it allows you to really reframe how you view yourself. Being someone that provides value doesn't always mean you need to have the most money in the room or the most power in the room. Even as a student, when I came across this book, I understood that, you know what, my unfair advantage right now is time. These 9-to-5ers don't have time for anything. So if I want shadowing experience with that individual, I'm going to go up to them and let them know that, hey, if you ever need any admin support, I'm actually available for a few weeks this summer. I'd love to come to your office, learn a bit about what you do, and also support with admin. Whatever it is, I'm sure there are individuals out there who would love to outsource some of the heavy admin work they have to do, and in exchange you might grab a coffee with them. You might be able to pick their brain about a certain thing. They may invite you behind the scenes to how they conduct their meetings or how they build their businesses. So just really think about what value can you bring to the conversation and to that connection you're trying to build with once you get into that room.
Definitely. And I think it's all just about initiative. There's going to be thousands of people who want to have a conversation, but how many will actually go and have that conversation? And how many will follow up from that conversation?
Let's get into that.
Should we get into that? Is it finally time? So like I mentioned, once you meet someone, you need to make yourself rememberable. And rememberable or memorable? Whoa, yeah,
Whoa.
Rememberable is crazy.
Memorable, yeah.
Memorable. And how you do that is just by following up on the conversation you've had. So, for example, if you connect with this person on, like, let's say LinkedIn, Liddy's favorite platform in the world, you can just pop over a message. Hi, Liddy, it was great to meet you today at so-and-so event, and to learn more about what you do. I'd love to grab a coffee one day and chat more about this if you're free. Something simple as that. And if that person is genuinely free, they might be able to then let you know when you can catch up and have that conversation. If you'd prefer to speak via email, hi, Liddy, I don't know why you're always the example, but hi, Liddy, again, great to meet you, XYZ. I'd love to, or even if you want to ask them a question, I'd love to learn more about XYZ. Would you be able to guide me on this topic once you get a chance? Just something like that, not very, not going in with too much expectation, but just following up on that message so the person who you met the day before can then remember, oh yeah, this was Hazal, or this was Liddy, and oh yeah, let me just make a note of that, this is how I can contact them if I wanted to.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if they are the keynote speaker for that event, they've probably had hundreds of people approaching them, asking them, hey, I'd love to grab a coffee. Hey, I'd love to talk about this. Hey, I'd love to do that. But how many people actually followed up on that within 24 hours and emailed them and messaged them? Is how we've been able to secure certain guests for this podcast. Is how we've been able to secure certain opportunities that completely catapulted certain aspects of our lives because we followed up when others weren't willing to, when others weren't that desperate to, or didn't see the urgency in following up. So I think it's very important in what you said to actually follow up, do that last bit of networking, wrap it up with a nice bow. It may not lead to a coffee, it may not lead to a contact, but just being within their proximity can allow you to start building that trust that you need for your relationship building. And I love that you mentioned LinkedIn, because whether you like it or not, LinkedIn is an access tool in this day and age. And I know there's a lot of taboo around LinkedIn and a lot of negative opinions of it, but I'm going to say this with chest. You're old enough to create your own feed. If you do not like the announcement culture of LinkedIn or the person who posts about this that makes you feel this way, curate your feed and your algorithm. You have the power to do so. You can refine who and what type of content you're seeing on your LinkedIn to an extent. Of course, I know algorithm and ads plays a role, but you can curate the type of things you have access to. And I'm really heavy on that. If I start getting access to certain accounts that make me feel discouraged, or there's fear mongering, or it makes me feel like, oh no, like AI is here, that I will no longer have a creative career continuously, I will just simply disconnect. You can simply, I think there's an option on LinkedIn where you can put an option to no longer see posts from a certain author, or to remove that connection. Create your LinkedIn feed so that it's positive for you, and so that you're not giving someone else the power to rob you off of an opportunity to have access to millions of people that are in the same niche as you, interested in the same things, posting about certain opportunities happening in relation to your niche or the type of life you want to build. LinkedIn is an access tool, whether you like it or not, and it's within your benefit to get on it. And if you want us to go into more details about where to get started with LinkedIn, that's definitely something we can do in another episode. But just be on it, be present, post about what you're learning, what you're up to within the constraints of your privacy, and see how it can open doors for you professionally, because you never know who is watching.
Exactly. That's the thing. LinkedIn definitely is one of the tools that I think is most underused, speaking from experience. I think there was this stat I saw that only 1% of LinkedIn users use it frequently, which is crazy, because it's a great, I would call it like a social media platform, but it's not like a traditional social media platform. It's one where there is that more professional element to it, and there is that element where you can actually learn more about other people as well, their professional background, their career background, and it can actually inspire you and help you in your networking journey. So definitely don't underestimate the importance of LinkedIn, I would say.
Yeah, and I think it's important for us to say this out loud. We're not claiming to have cracked the secret to networking and access. No. Definitely not. We're still learning. We're still learning how to maintain our connections better, how to show up better, how to be more confident in networking spaces, and, improve the way we conversate with people is something we're still learning. But a place we can speak from is what we've learned along the way, and how much it has transformed our lives and continues to transform our lives. And it's definitely a journey we will continue to go on with networking and access. And all these buzzwords, but I really do hope we've kind of, removed the stigma, the negative stigma around it, and have shown you that even us as women building from scratch, building without a blueprint, how we have been able to grow in networking and use it as leverage to get to the places we need to be.
Yeah.
Great. Well, guys, that's kind of our episode all wrapped up. Like, I really hope that you found this episode useful. Oh my God, I'm forgetting something. We end our episodes of Dear Ambitious Girlies.
Were you going to forget that?
Yeah, I was.
That is crazy.
But yeah, we like to end our episodes with a segment of Dear Ambitious Girlies and just let you know, if there's one thing we want you to take away from this episode, what will it be? Do you want to lead the way?
Yeah. Dear Ambitious Girlies, it's 2026, so put yourself into those rooms that you know you need to be into to get to the next stage of your careers and the different opportunities you can have access to.
Nicer. I would say, Dear Ambitious Girlies, don't underestimate the power of networking. Put aside your negative stigma and see it as something that can truly transform your life, not just in getting you that job you want or in getting you that business opportunity you want financially, but also in transforming the way you think and the way that you lead the life you have and the standards you pair with it, to be honest. So yeah, networking is a positive thing. Networking is a positive thing.
I love how she just did an hour episode of networking and then started her way towards the end.
But yeah, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to share this episode with your network of ambitious women. And if you want to see what we're up to, you can stay in touch with the podcast channels at Boldly Ambitious Pod on Instagram, YouTube, and I think at this point we'll have a TikTok as well. Really exciting things coming. And yeah, we'll be sure to see you for a new podcast episode very soon.
Bye guys.